For this construction, we want to construct parallel lines. So we have an original line here drawn on our piece of paper, and we've got a point that's not on the line. This point P is going to be important because this is the point that we want to use to construct our parallel line. So we're going to start at P, we're going to end up drawing some sort of line that goes through P, and hopefully it's going to be parallel to this line that's already drawn. Now, in order to do this, let's think about properties of parallel lines. If you have two parallel lines cut by a transversal, so we're just kind of saying it over here on the side, all of your corresponding angles, or the angles that are similar in relation to the transversal, are going to be congruent. So these angles are congruent, these angles are congruent, etc. You can kind of keep going through. Hopefully that should sound familiar. Or you could think of it in terms of the converse. If you have two lines cut by a transversal so that these two angles are the same, then you can say that these are necessarily, they have to be parallel. So we're going to use that idea to draw a parallel line up here. So in order to do that, the first thing you want to do is just pick some point on your line, and you're going to create some transversal here. So you're going to draw a line through point P and point X, and that's going to be considered your transversal. We've got some line going through both our point and this other line, and we're going to try to create the other parallel line like we have down here. So with that said, if we know we need that angle up here, we want to get this angle up here at point P. So the same angle at this point X needs to be up here at point P right here. So we're going to use construction number 2 to recreate this angle up there. So again, you're going to use your compass and your straight edge to perform this construction. So first you start off, this is hopefully going to be a review for you, start off by picking some arbitrary distance from point X on your compass, and you're going to draw an arc that intersects both sides of your angle. So you've got an arc going across here that's intersecting both sides. Don't change your compass length. Pick it up. Now move your point to P, the point of your compass or the center of your compass, and draw an arc up at point P that's very similar to the one you drew at X. Now here's where it's key. In order to figure out what your angle measure is, or to recreate this angle down here with X, you need to figure out what is the distance from this point of intersection to this one. So we want to figure out what is the distance between this opening here on the sides of our angle. You're going to use your compass to measure that distance. So here, use your compass. And depending on the kind of compass you have, it can be more challenging because you don't want your compass to move. You make a little arc here, and the reason I make a little arc is to show, alright, that is indeed where they intersect. So now I have a compass length that represents that opening there. And you're going to do that same thing up here. So you're going to the intersection of your arc on this transversal. Then you're going to strike an arc to intersect the first arc that you've created. So you've created another intersection point right up here. And again, what we're doing is essentially creating two congruent triangles, because when we create congruent triangles, we know that all the corresponding parts are congruent. So this side is going to be congruent to this one because they're both radial lengths. This side is going to be congruent to any other side that we draw here. But right now we created this line right here. So from here to here, that's the same also. So we've got a triangle down here, and if we connect this line right here, we should end up with two congruent triangles. So the more careful you are to draw nice straight lines, the more parallel your line's going to look. So this length is a radius from our first arc, so these are congruent. These segments are congruent also because we have the same radial distance if this is our center. And now we've got two congruent little triangles here, and corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding parts are congruent, so now we have two lines cut by a transversal such that corresponding angles are congruent. So we can say that necessarily these two lines have to be parallel to each other. So what we've done is we've constructed parallel lines. So let's just go through this one more time real quick. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to pick some point not on the line, and I'm going to move it over here. So I'm going to kind of try to do it a different way for you. So I'm going to pick my point over here, call that point X. So we want to go through X and this point not on the line. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that it doesn't matter if it's an acute angle or an obtuse angle that you're recreating. You can do either one and you'll still get parallel lines. So figure out, alright, what's an arc? This is going to be more challenging to do to show on the video because I have to kind of maneuver funny. But we've got an arc length there. The same thing from this point right here. Need a longer arc. I'm trying to make my lines nice and dark so you can see them on the video. You don't have to have very dark lines when you're doing these constructions yourself. Actually, the lighter the lines are, the easier it's going to be to decipher which are your construction lines and which is the actual line you're trying to create. So that's why I'm doing this one in ink. This one right here is the line that we want to construct, the parallel line. We don't really care necessarily about all these little arcs. Not that I want you to go through and erase them, because showing them is showing that you understand the process. But if they're lighter, it's easier to see what your final product is. So again, we're measuring the distance from the two intersections of that arc. So we want to recreate this angle. So again, I'll show that they do indeed measure up. Now go up here where that arc intersects the transversal. That's going to be the center of your quote-unquote circle. So we're creating another intersection point right about here of those two arcs. So now you take your, that doesn't seem like it's lining up very well. Yeah, seems to work. So as long as I have drawn my line correctly, it should be about right. Once I connect those lines, these should be parallel because these angles here are congruent, or you could say these angles right here are congruent. Either way you want to do it, you can use an obtuse angle. You could have recreated this angle over here, up here. Both ways would be legitimate ways of drawing parallel lines.